So, you're just going to have to indulge me a little bit this morning. I have to share a personal theory of mine. I know we're in the book of Proverbs, and we're going to get to the scripture. That's why you're here, to hear from the scripture. But first of all, I need to share with you a world conspiracy. So here's my, I don't know if you've ever seen this meme, this guy, here's my conspiratorial belief, all right? The world praises vice, exalts pride, and revels in evil while knowing deep down it never works out well. That it never really satisfies. So all of the things, all of the hype, all of the worldliness that is praised, the stuff, the experiences, the pleasures, all of that, the achievements, I think that the world actually knows deep down it doesn't actually satisfy. Case in point, first piece on the board, Taylor Swift, right? Her song Anti-Hero says this: I have this thing where I get older, but just never wiser. I should not be left to my own devices. They come with prices and vices. I end up in crisis. It's a tale as old as time. Do you notice that? She's left to her own devices. It ends up with vice, and it leads her to crisis, because they know that just giving yourself to whatever it is that you want, it never ends up working out for you in the end. Number two, One Republic, another band, Ryan Heder, he says this: I feel something so right doing the wrong thing, and I feel something so wrong doing the right thing. Everything that kills me makes me feel alive. Do you see that underneath the reality? I know this is killing me. I know this isn't good for me, but it's what I want to do. It makes me feel alive, right? There's that subtle, deep down, they know it's not quite what they're longing for. Let's go to some sports. Gilbert Arenas, when asked by an interviewer, what does a 32-year-old retiree who's worth over $100 million spend their days doing over the next year or two? Gilbert Arenas says, trying to figure out who he is. Miserable. 32 years old, retired, worth over $100 million, but he doesn't know who he is, and he's miserable because his whole life has been basketball. That's been his whole identity, and now he doesn't have that, and now he doesn't have what has given him a sense of meaning and purpose his whole life. Another one you might have heard of is LeBron James. This is from a Nike ad campaign. He says, being a winner is a curse. It doesn't matter how much you've won before, you're not a winner until you win again and again and again. Nothing is enough. No one understands, and you never want it to stop. There's this desire that's like, I have to achieve, I have to keep winning, I have to overcome, this is what I was made for, but it never satisfies. You have to keep doing it again and again and again and again. There's always another thing to win, another championship to overcome, another opportunity to have to prove yourself. So even achievement can't satisfy you. Lastly, this is one of my favorite quotes from a TV show called Man in the High Castle. And the main character at the end of the film, he says this, because it was like a multiverse thing, and so he saw himself in other worlds, basically. And here's what he says: we've seen things, you and me, other worlds, other lives. We have that in common. It's unbearable to be able to look through that door and glimpse all the people you could have been, and to know that out of all of them, this is the one you became. That reality that, like, I could have been someone else. I could have been a better version of me, but this is the one that I became because I let myself go down these pathways of evil and wickedness, and in his case, that was the case. What does this all say? This is all to say that I do believe that the world, even, the lost world who doesn't know Jesus, who doesn't know God, I think there's an inner understanding that the things they pursue, the things they praise, the evil that they will worship, right? You hear it in the songs, you see it in the movies, you see all of that. I think deep down they know this doesn't satisfy. They wake up the next morning and it hasn't fulfilled them. Ask any professional athlete who finally won the championship. It felt great in the moment, but the next day when they get up, what are they thinking? Wow, I still have to live my life. I have to do it again next year. It doesn't satisfy. Here's what Ray Ortland, a pastor, says. Everyone is on a path. Everyone is going somewhere. When we feel stuck, even when we feel trapped, the truth is we are still in motion. Life is a journey, and the end of it all is not just a place, but also a condition. We are becoming the end of our journey. Wise or foolish, and every moment takes us closer there. All right, for what we understand as believers in Jesus is that we're on a journey. Everyone recognizes that. But what we need to remember is that the end of the journey isn't a place. Like, the new heaven and the new earth is a place, but what's so beautiful about that place is that it's because we're going to be in the presence of Jesus, but we ourselves are going to be made whole. We're going to be in a condition of perfection. And in our journey, in our lives, we are becoming someone. You and I are becoming a kind of person. And the question is, what kind of person are you and I becoming? Are we becoming wise? Or by our decision making, by our habits, by our practices, are we becoming foolish? Let's look at Proverbs chapter 2. This is where we are going to discover the two paths. The path of wisdom versus folly. The way of light versus darkness. The street of righteousness versus wickedness. Good versus evil. Life versus death. It's all in Proverbs 2. So let's start in verse 6. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of righteousness and watching over the way of his saints. Then you will understand righteousness and justice and equity and every good path. For wisdom will come into your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will watch over you. Understanding will guard you, delivering you from the way of evil, from men of perverted speech, who forsake the paths of uprightness, to walk in the ways of darkness. I'm sorry to switch over. Who rejoice in doing evil and delight in the perverseness of evil. Men whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways. So you will be delivered from the forbidden woman, from the adulteress with her smooth words, who forsakes the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. For her house sinks down to death and her paths to the departed. None who go to her come back, nor do they regain the paths of life. So you will walk in the way of the good and keep to the paths of the righteous. For the upright will inhabit the land, and those with integrity will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the land, and the treacherous will be rooted out of it. All right, if you were looking at the screen, I bolded all the words that were mentioning paths and ways and streets and roads, right? Like Proverbs sets up what you could call a two-path theology. There's two paths in life. You are either moving towards wisdom or you are moving towards foolishness, and there is no middle ground. There is no coast button. There is no neutral zone. Every single day, every single habit, every single practice, every single decision is a decision that leads us either toward wisdom or toward foolishness. This is the two-path theology of the book of Proverbs. And the wise father of the Proverbs is describing life to his son as a choice between two paths. One path is faithful to the covenant of God by listening and obeying the wisdom of God. The other seeks pleasure and delights in evil. One path leads to blessing and goodness and life, and the other leads to cursing and evil and death. The choice is yours. Every day we live, we are making decisions that affect who we will become. Are we walking in the path of wisdom, or do we find ourselves in the way of foolishness? Last week, we were introduced to Lady Wisdom, which is simply wisdom personified as a woman who calls to us to listen to her so that we can enjoy her house and the life that it brings. But we didn't get to chapter 9 last week, and so we're going to go to chapter 9 this week. So to turn your Bibles to Proverbs chapter 9. Last week we were exploring Lady Wisdom in Proverbs chapter 1 and in Proverbs 8. But we didn't get introduced to the other woman. The other woman who is woman folly, right? There's actually a battle going on. There's two voices calling, and they're calling us to go down these two separate paths. Lady Wisdom is saying, hey, come and walk down the path of blessing and goodness and life. And Lady Folly's like, hey, come walk down this path. It's a lot more fun. There's more pleasure. There's more goodness over here. Believe me, just trust me. Come to this path. Let's listen to them speak in Proverbs chapter 9. Wisdom has built her house. She has sown her 7 pillars. This is Proverbs 9, verse 1. Verse 2. She has slaughtered her beasts. She has mixed her wine. She has also set her table. She has sent out her young women to call from the highest places in the town. Whoever is simple, let him turn in here. To him who lacks sense, she says, come and eat of my bread and drink of the wine I have mixed. Leave your simple ways and live, and walk in the way of insight. Whoever corrects a scoffer gets himself abuse, and he who reproves a wicked man incurs injury. Do not reprove a scoffer, or he will hate you. Reprove a wise man, and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will still be wiser. Teach a righteous man, and he will increase in learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. For by me your days will be multiplied and your years will be added to your life. If you are wise for yourself. If you scoff, you alone will bear it. The woman folly is loud. She is seductive and knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house. She takes a seat on the highest places of the town, calling to those who pass by, who are going straight on their way. Whoever is simple, let him turn and hear. And to him who lacks sense, she says, stolen water is sweet. And bread eaten in secret is pleasant, but he does not know that the dead are there, that her guests are in the depths of Sheol. What is Lady Wisdom like? The first phrase it says is that Lady Folly. Lady Folly is loud. Lady Folly is loud. What does that mean? It means that you're going to hear Lady Folly everywhere. Listen, if you listen to the culture's songs, if you watch the movies, if you look at the ads, if you read the billboards, if you go with the slogans, if you watch the politics, if you shop at the malls, if you scroll on social media, and you go shopping on the websites, you are going to be confronted and completely bombarded by Lady Folly. Lady Folly is loud. She's everywhere. It's impossible to miss her because in the battle of the two women calling, she's seductive. That means that she looks good and she looks full of pleasure. She's shiny. She's the party girl. She's where everyone else is, and she represents what everyone else is doing. Right? The classic line of the kid who's asking their parents if they can do this or that, and they say, but all of my friends are doing it. Right? Everyone else is going. Right? That's the seduction of Lady Folly. Everyone else is doing it. And it's often spoken when a young soul has been captured by the seduction of Lady Folly. And when I say seduction, and when I'm mentioning Lady Folly, don't let your mind only wander to sexual morality. Because Lady Folly pops up when you're shopping on Amazon. Lady Folly pops up when you see the shiny things and the shiny places that other people are experiencing on social media, and you think that those things will make you happy. Lady Folly says this. Lady Folly says, buy this and you will be satisfied. Eat a lot of that or drink a lot of this and you will feel good. Scroll endlessly to assuage your feelings of loneliness or meaninglessness. Enjoy sexual pleasure with the person who is not your spouse. Divorce your spouse because you deserve it. Don't report that money on your taxes. No one will ever know. Fantasize about being in a relationship with that person. It's just in your head. Ignore that person. They have no way of giving back to you. Don't do that act of kindness. You're tired. You deserve to rest. Spend your money on what you want. You earned it after all. That's Lady Folly. That's Lady Folly saying, it's all about you. Do what you want. Do whatever will please you. Do whatever you think will satisfy you in this moment. That's Lady Folly. She's calling to us and she's saying, look, come over to me because it's better where I'm at. The path of this way, of my way, and of foolishness, this is the better path. Wisdom's like, no, don't listen to her. Come down the path of wisdom. It's the real path of life. The text says in Proverbs 9 that that the person going with Lady Folly doesn't know that the dead are there. That's the way to Sheol, or the place of the dead. We're going to explore many of these themes in the upcoming weeks. Let me just kind of show you where we're going. Here's the next 5 sermons. I'm letting you know what we're doing next 5 sermons, okay? We're going to talk about words, love, money, work, and friends. Because Proverbs has a lot to say about all 5 of those subjects. And what we're going to look at is how Lady Folly is going to tell us certain things about these, but Lady Wisdom is going to truly teach us the wisdom of God in the midst of these 5 categories of life. How do we think about our words? How do we process love and relationships and marriage and sex? Money, how do we spend our money? What do we spend it on? How should we go about those things? Work, it's a good gift from God. How should we engage in work? And friends and relationships, who we hang out with and how it forms us. That's where we're going. But the big point I want us to see this morning is this. Wisdom worships God. Folly serves the gods, little g gods. Okay? Notice what in chapter 9, what verse 3 and verse 14 say. Verse 3, Lady Wisdom says, from the highest places in the town. Verse 14 says, she takes a seat on the highest places of the town. Do you know what the highest places of the town represent in ancient Israel and in the ancient Near Eastern world? It represents the place where you worship. It represents where the altars go. It represents where the temple is built. It represents the highest places because in that day, the gods were up there. And so you would build your altars, build your sacrifices, build your temples, build anything having to do with the worship. You would build it at the high place. And so what Lady Wisdom and Lady Folly are picturing for us is that Lady Wisdom is saying, I've placed myself at the high place to the worship of God, and Lady Folly is calling you to serve other gods, to serve the gods of the nations, to serve for Israel Moloch and Baal and all these other gods. So I want you to think of the battle between Lady Wisdom and Lady Folly not as just a battle of decision making, but as a battle of desire that's actually asking the question, who do you worship? Okay? All right. Will you choose to listen to the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who made a covenant at Sinai, delineating his wisdom in the law, or will you choose to listen to the gods of the nations? If you go back to Proverbs chapter 2, verse 6. Says this, for the Lord gives wisdom. See, wisdom comes from the Lord. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity. This is a battle of who are we going to listen to? The God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God that we know in Jesus Christ? Or are we going to listen to the gods of the nations, the culture's gods? Now, what are the culture's gods today? Obviously, people aren't bowing down to idols, not very many anyway, in our area of Puerto Rico and in the States. So what does idolatry look like today? And here's what it looks like. We need to define what idolatry is. What is idolatry? Here's what idolatry is. An idol is anything more important to you than God. Anything that absorbs your heart and imagination more than God. anything you seek to give you what only God can give, anything that is so central and essential to your life that should you lose it, your life would feel hardly worth living. This is idolatry, to love anything created more than the Creator. That includes your spouse and your family and the good things in your life, your work and all those things. But if they become more important to you than God, then they become idols in your life that you end up serving to your detriment and to theirs. So the path of worship to God or to idolatry are two paths. This is a choice that we face every day. But when you go through life, I mean, maybe you're not like me. Maybe you're very thoughtful. But when I go through life, I tend to just sometimes get in checked out, I'm just doing life, right? I'm just living in the moment. I'm making my decisions based on previous decisions I've made, and it's just coming out of me, right? I'm not stopping, I'm not premeditating every decision I make, right? When I get up in the morning and I go make coffee, that's not a premeditated decision. That's a habit of my life. That's just what happens in the morning. I get up and I do that. When you're driving and you end up you arrive at the place and you're like, oh wait, I don't remember driving for the last 10 minutes. I'm here. It's because you're just doing what the habits have formed in your life, and so you can go on in that kind of checked out way. But here's what's driving everything you and I do. Okay, this is really important. And I'm going to quote Paul Tripp for this, okay? You and I are always desiring. Always desiring. Desires precede, determine, and characterize everything you do. Desires get you up in the morning and they put you to bed at night. Desire makes you work with discipline to get one thing done and run as hard as you can to avoid another. Desires sculpt every relationship in your life. They are the lenses through which you examine every situation. At the foundation of all worship, whether true or false, is a heart full of desire. To stop desiring is impossible, because when you quit desiring, you are dead. Right? We are desiring creatures. Everything we do is a result of our desires. In life, we're always facing competing desires. Now, I know when I tell this to teenagers, they always say to me, wait a second. When I tell the teenagers that they always do what they want to do, they're like, no, I don't. My mom and dad tell me to do things I don't want to do all the time, right? I don't want to do my chores. I don't want to clean my room. I don't want to clean up after myself when I eat breakfast, or whatever the case may be, right? But the fact is, they are doing what they want to do. Because here's the decision that lies before them. I don't want to clean up my room, but what I really don't want is to deal with the wrath of my mom if I don't clean up my room. So my desire to avoid the consequence of not cleaning up my room is actually determining my decision to clean up my room, because even though I don't want to clean up my room, I really don't want to hear all of the consequences coming from my mom's mouth and the grounding or whatever the case may be. So because I don't want that, I'm going to clean my room. You see, it's a competing desire. I don't want to do this, but I really don't want that. So I'm going to do this thing I don't want to do because I really don't want that, right? They're still making their decisions based on what they most want or most don't want. And all of us are like that. Every decision you make is a decision of your desires. Do you want to do this or that? We could get into some economics, but we're not going to. But in life, when we're facing the desires, here's the reality. When we do something we don't want to do, it's because our desire to avoid the consequence of not doing it is greater. So that means that the only way to overcome a desire is by developing a stronger one for something or someone else. All right, let me say that again. The only way to overcome a desire is by developing a stronger one for something or someone else. Does this make sense? So if I have a decision to make between Lady Folly and Lady Wisdom, let me just tell you, your desires are going to want what Lady Folly is offering. Because she's seductive. She's loud. She looks pleasurable. That item on Amazon looks worth buying. It looks like it'll bring you happiness. That food, that drink looks like overeating is going to be really nice. That relationship that you shouldn't be in, that looks like a good thing. But it's seductive. The only way to overcome those desires is to have a greater desire for wisdom. So that we walk down the path of wisdom. Now, we can't just cut off our desires, but we can overcome them with a greater desire for what God offers us in life and in wisdom. And this is why Proverbs lays out in detail the good of the wise path and the detriment of the foolish path. It's trying to convince the young man, listen, wisdom is better. It's trying to stoke the fire, trying to ignite the flame of desire for wisdom. God's way is the best way. It's the way that leads to life. It is more beautiful. Don't be fooled by the seduction of Lady Folly. Wisdom is calling you to worship God and find real life and real joy and real satisfaction in Him. Let's read one more text here. Proverbs chapter 4. We'll start in verse 10. I think I have these on the screen. Proverbs 4. He says, "Hear, my son, and accept my words, that the years of your life may be many. I have taught you the way of wisdom. I have led you in the paths of uprightness. When you walk, your step will not be hampered, and if you run, you will not stumble. Keep hold of instruction, do not let go. Guard her, for she is your life. Do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of evil. Avoid it. Do not go on it. Turn away from it and pass on. For they cannot sleep unless they have done wrong. They are robbed of sleep unless they have made someone stumble. For they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. But the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn, which shines brighter and brighter until full day. The way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know over what they stumble. My son, be attentive to my words. Incline your ear to my sayings. Let them not escape from your sight. Keep them within your heart. For they are life to those who find them and healing to all their flesh. Keep your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the springs of life. Put away from you crooked speech and put devious talk far from you. Let your eyes look directly forward and your gaze be straight before you. Ponder the path of your feet. Then all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Turn your foot away from evil." Did you see that previous line there? Keep your heart with all diligence. Guard your heart, some translations will say. Because remember, the heart is where it's referring to our desires. It's referring to that inner part of our lives. And the Proverbs writer, he knows that every decision you make is going to come from your desires. And so he says, guard your heart. Guard your heart with all vigilance, because if you can guard your heart, out of your desires flow life. Every decision you make, everything you do, it's coming from your inner desires that you have in your heart. So guard your heart. You're going to want to go down the foolish path. Don't do it. Wisdom is better. Wisdom will help you. Wisdom leads to life. Don't go the way of evil. Don't let your desire for created things become more important than your desire for God. Maybe you're like me and you find it very difficult to overcome certain desires in the moment when we know it's not holy, right? Because what is anger but the desire to control? Fear is a desire for safety. Lust is a desire for pleasure. Sloth is a desire for comfort. Pride is a desire for respect. Greed is a desire for more. Envy is a competitive desire. And gluttony is a desire to be satisfied. All the things we do, all the things we know aren't right, that come naturally out of us, they're coming from desires for things that have become more important to us than our relationship with God. Desires are at the root of all of our emotions and of our decisions. So the Proverbs wise sage says, guard your heart. Guard your heart. What is it that you desire? Is it for the things of the way of foolishness or for the things on the way of wisdom? But it's not like we can just flip a switch. The fact is, we all need new hearts, right? We can't just stop going down the path of foolishness. We need new hearts. That was our ultimate problem. I mean, look at any child who is learning the ways of being human, right? What are the first things you see happening in children when they get into relationships with their siblings or other friends? Are they just generously giving of all of their toys and sharing all of their candy and seeking the good of everyone else around them? No. When I was a little kid, I know it might be hard to believe, but like when I was a little kid, my natural impulse was to claim everything for myself. I want that toy. I want that candy. I'll take that last piece of cake. I want the best seat in the helicopter or the best seat in the car, right? Like my natural impulse was to want to serve me. I had to have Jesus come and give me a new heart so that I could actually walk in the way of wisdom. Because we're all in need of this change. Let's go to a New Testament text, Ephesians chapter 2. Ephesians chapter 2. Here's what Paul says. And you were dead in the trespasses and sins in which you once walked. Did you notice that terminology? It's the same path terminology. What path are you on? Where are you? What path are you walking on? Is it the path of wisdom or is it the path of foolishness? And in Ephesians, Paul says every single one of us was on the path of foolishness. We were dead in our trespasses and sins in which we once walked. We followed the course of this world. We followed the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience, among whom we all once lived in the passions, that's the desires of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the body and the mind, and were by nature children of wrath like the rest of mankind. You see, Paul's using all this language right here in this text. He's saying, listen, this is all of us. Apart from Jesus, we were on the path of foolishness. We were walking in our own desires. We were pleasing ourselves. We were seeking what we thought was best for us. But it was a deadness in sin. And then here's the good news. But God, being rich in mercy. See, this isn't condemnation. This is just the reality of who we were. But God is rich in mercy. And he says, because of the great love with which he loved us, that even though we were dead in our trespasses, he says, I will make you alive. I will give you a new heart. And I will give you a new desire. And I'm going to make you alive together with Christ, because by grace you have been saved. And I'm going to raise you up and seat you with us, with me in the heavenly places in Christ Jesus. It is by grace that we have been saved. Through faith. When we believe in Jesus Christ, when we put our faith in Jesus Christ, God gives us a new heart so that we can walk in his wisdom. Not in our supposed understanding of what's best for us, but in God's wisdom, because we're worshiping God now in the face of Jesus Christ, not the things of this earth, not in the created realities, but in the Creator. You guys remember what Jesus said in Matthew 7? He says this, enter by the narrow gate. For the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction. If you want to head in the path that everyone else is heading, just don't do anything. Just do what you want. Do what makes you happy in the moment. Do what pleases you in the moment. That's what everyone else is doing, but the problem is it leads to destruction. It looks seductive, it looks pleasing, but it winds up in death. And Jesus says those who enter by it are many. But for the gate is narrow, And the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few. The pathway of wisdom through the person of Jesus Christ, who is wisdom, is the pathway to life. And so the question is this morning, are you guarding your heart? Listen, if you don't know Jesus, if you've never given your life to Jesus, then you need a new heart. So that you can know Him, so that you can know His wisdom, so that you can know His ways, so that you can walk in His ways and His righteousness and His holiness and His goodness. But if you know Jesus this morning, then the call of Proverbs, the call of Lady Wisdom, is to guard your heart. Your heart is going to want the things contrary to the will and ways of God. But will you submit to the call of God on your life? Or will you pursue the things of the world, the lust of the eyes, the desires of the flesh, the pride of life? Anything that you desire as more important, more satisfying, more pleasurable than God will destroy you. So here's how it looks in my life. It's hard not to yell. When I'm wrestling with sin, when I'm wrestling with sinful desire in my life, I'm trying to pinch. It's literally like just chilling. Sorry, I've never seen it do that before. Anyway, desire in my heart that is for something that is not holy, right? Something that's not good. What I want to do is I want to think about those desires and be like, what is it that is seductive about this? What is Lady Folly promising me will happen, right? Because here's the reality. Sin never delivers on its promises. Sin never delivers on its promises. Sin will promise you joy. It'll promise you happiness. It'll promise you pleasure, but it never delivers on it. It only brings destruction and chaos and collateral damage, and it hurts you and others, right? And so I want to say, what is Lady Folly lying to me about? What's the lie that she's selling me in that desire? And what is wisdom calling me to? Because I need to guard my heart so that my heart longs for the things of wisdom, because that is where life is found. That is where blessing is found. Lady Folly is going to say that it's better to just do what you want, please yourself, make yourself happy in the moment. Lady Wisdom is going to say, actually, the pathway of love, selflessness, generosity, grace, that's the way that leads to life, even though it's going to cost you something in the moment. And so my encouragement for you this morning, and from Proverbs, is to guard your heart and to search your heart, to notice what is it that's drawing my desires away from a love for God's wisdom and towards the wisdom of this world. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes and just search your own heart this morning? And consider, Lord, where would you want me to ignite the flame of desire in my heart for wisdom? Would you do that in my heart, Lord? Let's just pray that prayer this morning as we seek to guard our hearts, that we might be faithful to God in wisdom.